Shorter, quicker, snappier. This is what many Americans prefer these days when looking to catch up on the news. With all of the different forms of content vying for our attention, it's no surprise that our ability to focus is dwindling. Take TikTok, for instance. The short-form video app now has more than 1.3 billion users. That equates to 18% of the world's population. You can find any type of content by simply searching the platform. Need recommendations on where to eat if you're visiting LA? Want updates on the war in Ukraine in under 60 seconds? TikTok has it. The popularity of user-generated news content on apps like TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook have only further blurred the lines of who exactly is a journalist. In fact, TikTok is now the fastest-growing news source for users ages 16 to 24. To compete with shifting consumer preferences, more traditional media outlets are tailoring formats to resemble these platforms. One example of this is the success of media company Axios. In 2016, 3 former Politico journalists banded together to fill a niche within media that they believed was missing.
When we looked at the data, you could see that most people were not reading traditional news articles. They weren't reading the 1,000-page articles. They were actually just reading about 250 words. And we realized that things were really changing in terms of communication, in terms of news. And what was happening was people were overwhelmed with all the information that was coming at them.
That's Roy Schwartz, co-founder and president of the news platform Axios. Schwartz, along with other co-founders Jim Van de Heye and Mike Allen, recently sold the company to Cox Media for $525 million. In the wake of the sale, the trio has also released a new book, Smart Brevity: The Power of Saying More with Less. While Axios started off small 6 years ago, today it's widely popular for its unique style of concise and clear formatting. Similar to what's popular on social media, each story on its site is easily digestible and can be consumed in a matter of minutes.
The idea was, let's fit the information that people need on 1 or 2 screens of their phone, because most consumption at that point, 80% of consumption, was on the phone. When you're reformatting content for the phone, it's very different than what it was for a computer or what it was for print. And so that made us create bullet points. It made us create what we call axioms, which are little beginnings of paragraphs that help people follow the content. It helped us break content up into separate sections and add images to each of those sections.
These parameters were originally created for news articles, but are also applicable to other fields outside of journalism. It applies whether you're creating content for social media or drafting an email newsletter for a brand.
We often recommend that you think about the person, an actual person that's at the center of your audience. Like, who are you trying to reach? And the more you can picture a person, the more likely it is that you're going to write in a way that's more approachable for that person. The other is to use smaller words, right? 1 or 2 syllable words are much better. They're punchier, they're more memorable, and longer words, in some cases, can alienate people. And so using 1 or 2 syllable words is better. Use words that you would say, not words that you write. When we sit down and type, we use words like aforementioned. You would never use that. Like, if you and I were talking, we would never say that. So don't use language that you wouldn't speak when you're writing. And then when you're done writing, read it out loud. If it doesn't sound like something you would say in real life to a person, then don't write it that way. A lot of people write in corporate speak, and it's just not a very good way of communicating.
This format is also transferable when crafting a speech or presentation. Pretend you're giving a talk at an annual work summit.
You really have to think about, how do I break up what I'm saying? And what we tell people is, in a speech, you'll be lucky if they remember one thing. So what is the one thing that you want them to remember? And make sure that you repeat that several times. Make sure that everything around it reinforces that position and you can keep coming back to it. And then actually tell them at the end, this was the one thing that I wanted you to take away. And tell them at the beginning, this is the one thing that I'm going to want you to remember when I finish. That helps, because most people only remember one thing from a speech.
At the end of the day, Schwartz says it's all about efficiency. Everyone's busy, and there are so many distractions vying for people's attention. If a speech, article, or video fails to engage someone in the first 5 seconds, it's likely they'll lose focus.
When I look at my kids, I can see that they don't even like watching long videos anymore. They love YouTube and TikTok. They want to watch short, quick videos. They have very short attention spans. And I don't love that, but that is the way that the society seems to be trending. And so in that, how do you evolve how you communicate so that you can still break through?
And not everyone prefers this short-form news content. Schwartz says it's just one of the many formats out there. There's still a need for long-form content and investigative journalism. This new style is simply here to meet shifting consumer demands. On Axios, readers have the option to dive deeper into a topic if they're interested.
As an example, back when they were talking about changes coming up to, a bill, right? It might be important for most people to understand the very short part about, well, how's that going to impact my life? There are other people that really want to get into the nuance of, what that policy change might be. That's where a go deeper can be very effective, right? Click on the link, learn more, go deeper.
And if you visited the Axios site to read one of these articles, you wouldn't just see organized text, but also an array of unique visuals. In today's print and digital media landscape, pictures or videos are equally as important as the text that it's paired with.
We think that each item should have an image. And so you basically, as a human, you scan better, you read better, you absorb better if there's an image and text, rather than just blocks of text.
Today, this smart brevity model has proved to be a success, but 6 years ago, when Axios started, it was seen as a big gamble.
I think a lot of people thought that we were going to fail. We were very convinced that people needed something that was much more efficient, that they were overwhelmed, and it turned out to be right. I wish I could have told myself I would have been right. I probably would have slept a lot more and worried a lot less. So I'd probably go back and do that.
Looking ahead, the company is now expanding to smaller markets. In an era where many local newspapers are faltering, Schwartz says it's important to keep this medium alive through new sources of capital. In effect, Axios has launched Axios Local, a newsletter initiative that's set to provide local news to 50 cities and regions across the U.S. by next year. To find out more about this topic and our guest, Roy Schwartz, visit viewpointsradio.org. Find out more about Axios and their smart brevity format at axios.com. Also, check out the book Smart Brevity, The Power of Saying More with Less, available online now and in local bookstores. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
We're in a unique market that is really expensive, and keeping affordability of new cars is out of reach of a lot of households right now.
The high cost of going green. Then,
can I keep my dad's skull after he dies? Can I give Grandma a Viking funeral? What happens to an astronaut body if they die in space?
Answering the questions we all have about death. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.